This is a Kirblog. That's what this is. I'm with the Eggman to talk about the biz. How do you like? I came up with that like about 10 minutes ago. Did you like that?
I get the reference. That's good. I get it.
I get it. I'm going to leave now and never come back. Welcome, everybody.
By the entire internet at times.
Well, yeah, I know. I'm sure nobody's ever done that joke to you before, ever. That would be silly in, 15 years? My God. Welcome, everybody, to Voice October 2016, or I should say, rather, we're now into the first week of November, so I'm declaring this Voice Overtime. This is where I've been continuing to interview various voice acting veterans from the U.S. and Canada, learn about the history of how they started and where they started. For the last installment of this year's Voice October interview series of stuff that I've been doing, I have decided to save the best for last, and by best I mean my old stomping grounds of New York City and the East Coast in general. Joining me today, quite fittingly so, pardon me, he is the voice of Adon from the Berserk series and trilogy of movies, countless Pokemon and Yu-Gi-Oh! Characters, Langston Laketoad on Viva Pinata, the Garbage Man on the 2003 Ninja Turtle series, personal favorite of mine because I'm biased, Don Diablo in Mobile Suit Gundam The Origin, and of course he is also, I believe, if I am correct, the longest running English voice of Dr. Eggman from the Sonic the Hedgehog video games and animations and movies and various things. Ladies and gentlemen, Mike Pollock. Hi, Michael.
Oh, is that who you're expecting? Well,
yes.
I guess then that's who I'll be. Hi there. Yes, you're correct. It's been 13 years of Dr. Eggman, and boy, is my larynx tired.
Well, the fans are not tired as far as I'm concerned. They're very happy that you have been sticking with this this voluptuous, sexy villain for now well over a decade now, and you've been doing a splendid job with him and many other things. This was very last second. We're recording this on, Wednesday night. This is going up on Saturday. Two other folks I had planned fell out, and then I thought, wait a minute, Michael is absolutely a veteran. He would do this. I should go to him for this. Why didn't I think of him before? I'm a fool. And it's funny because I believe it was about 10 years ago, maybe even more than that now, that I interviewed you on another podcast that will be unnamed, but some people probably know which one it is. Which also means that, for better or worse, Sonic 06 is 10 years old, isn't it?
Yes, I suppose it is.
Happy anniversary.
Said no one ever.
Said me and my heinous relationship with that game. My God. So I'll get the generic crap all out of the way. I'm sure you've answered this on every panel interview you've ever done in the last 13 years, but brief history, how you started in your early days, your radio days, and then leading into your VO career, the beginning. Take us back, please.
Sure. I'll try to make it interesting this time. I'm kidding. As a kid, I grew up loving radio and loving theater. Did school theater as a child and dabbled in radio from high school on through college. And as I got into college, and I was thinking, well, let's see, I could be theater or I could be radio. There's not a lot of theater work that's real steady, and things are only slightly steadier in radio because you could be fired, as I learned later in my career, for reasons such as not being rock and roll enough. But at least with a radio job, you can usually work 5 days a week, roughly from 9 to 5, and have somewhat steady employment. So I chose radio. Wanted to minor in theater at Syracuse University. Hey, if you're listening, Syracuse, but at Syracuse, you can't minor in theater. You must major in it. Well, no, that's not real practical. So radio was the thing, and I was a disc jockey of sorts for a while and did various personality shifts, did some production, making commercials, and realized that what I really enjoyed was making the wacky voices in the commercials. So when radio turned from radio station work to radio syndication work, writing comedy and stuff completely anonymously for radio stations around the country. And then eventually radio decided, oh, we don't need you anymore. I was able to collect some of my voices from some of the comedy bits that I'd written and some of the commercials that I had done, made a demo tape, and decided, let's go with Plan B. And sent out a demo cassette at the time to such diverse places as NYAV Post, producer of many anime things. They gave me my first gig in the highly forgettable Demon Fighter Kocho. And then the next thing that went out was picked up by the folks producing Pokemon at the time, 4Kids, who eventually made 4Kids TV, the Fox Box, and all that stuff. Actually, before that, there was one previous thing, a VHS presentation of live action footage of boats in New York Harbor with me doing all the male voices, mostly because when they had me try the female voices, they didn't like them. And that's called Little Tug's Big Adventure. It's not for sale at any reasonable price anymore, but if you go to my website, you can find it on Amazon for much more than you're willing to pay. But you can see it if you want. That was recorded in some guy's bedroom, which was yeah, I guess wasn't weird at the time, but it was an interesting presentation. And then things snowballed from there.
I'm sure that, it's funny, that person was probably very ahead of the time, because now people are building full-fledged studios in their apartments, so that's become much more commonplace today. So we'll go with the head of his time on Tuggy's Big Adventure. So now, as I correct me if I'm wrong, because I certainly may be, because I actually don't know a whole lot about the kind of origin points of the cartoon and anime voiceover scene in New York, but also you were not part of the very first generation of folks. You came in. Did you come in around early 2000s, maybe late 90s? Was it?
Little Tug, which doesn't really count as being part of that scene, was just before 2000. My big push came when I was first laid off the first time from the syndication gig, and that would have been right before September 11th, 2001. Oof. So early 2001.
Okay.
It was Demon Fighter Kocho, and yeah.
That was right when I've actually talked about this on another Kirblog ages ago. I remember because the year that Yu-Gi-Oh premiered in 2001. That the weekend it was supposed to premiere on Kids WB was pushed back due to very important news coverage about 9/11 happening, and weirdly it because Cartoon Network was doing a thing where they were showing an episode of a Kids WB show every Friday night, because I guess they had kind of a good relationship with Turner or something. I'm not really sure, but Yu-Gi-Oh premiered, I believe, first in the U.S. on Cartoon Network the weekend before it was supposed to premiere on Kids WB. Little minor trivia there, but nonetheless. So, I mean, now for many years now, you have absolutely been one of the big guys in anime and cartoons and audiobooks, etc. in the New York scene. My only information about the time before you, within the early to late 90s, was the general story I hear from everybody was, oh, Tony Salerno got me in. Yeah, Tony Salerno. Yeah, he was the first director, but yeah, Tony Salerno. So from having met and worked with a lot of these guys, do you yourself know much about what the time of the early anime dubbing days with Central Park Media and stuff like that were before you entered into the scene, or is a lot of that stuff kind of a mystery too before you came in?
I've heard the legends of the Central Park Media days after the fact. My first introduction, I guess, would be, well, actually, I can kind of be the nexus for the two worlds meeting, and here's how. As I mentioned, the first anime gig was Michael Sinner Nicholas. He had his pool of talent, and then the second thing was Pokemon. Eric Stewart was my first director, who I guess was the first casting director. Heard the demo, said, "Oh, bring him in. He's good for stuff." Then I started doing more stuff with 4Kids, and I was talking to Senator Nicholas and said, "Oh, I'm doing stuff at 4Kids." Said, "Oh, they're really tough to get in with." I said, well, "Yeah, fine." Then if he were here, he would clarify who came to who. But at some point, it came up in discussions that they were auditioning for the Ninja Turtles, and he wanted to audition for it. And he said, maybe you could help get me an audition, or I maybe have offered to, maybe I could get you an audition. I don't remember. But either way, I made an inquiry, and they said, yeah, sure, bring him in. And they did, and he got in as Leonardo, Leonardo, the Ninja Turtles. And then suddenly he got to tap into the 4Kids talent pool. And that's when those things sort of intermingled.
Okay. Yeah, because I remember there was a time where I was noticing a lot of crossover between the MYAV pool of folks and then a lot more of the Four Kids guys were coming out.
Mm-hmm.
I was recently reminded of I totally forgot about this, but Jungle Emperor Leo, which is a beautifully terrifying movie,
Mm-hmm.
and it's so bizarre because it is literally all of the major players from Pokemon and Yu-Gi-Oh as these legendary Tezuka characters. And it's funny because that was directed by Michael, and
Mm-hmm.
and it's just crazy because hearing like all of the people that was one of the first things where I heard all of like the people I was so used to doing like the cutesy Saturday morning kind of like censored stuff to doing something where it's like it has the words "feast on my flesh" in it uttered by Dan Green, which I'm like, oh my god, what am I watching? So no, it was really cool to because I mean I'm sure it's no mystery to a lot of the flack that Four Kids got from people on the internet in the early to maybe even late 2000s for a while. But it was nice to hear a lot when a lot of shows would come through in the New York scene where everybody would get to really do like really serious and powerful performances and stuff, and that made me happy because it's like the New York talent pool is filled with so many amazing people. I mean, for Christ's sake, Broadway and off Broadway, and then radio people, and all these amazing folks who are so talented and deserve a lot more credit than I think that they get in terms of like the fandom, I would say. So when we get to hear you guys and stuff, like I mean, even with Gundam Origin, which again I'm biased, but hearing everybody in that just makes me so satisfied to see that. So when you started at Four Kids, that was from all the people I know who worked there, and again for all the flack it gets, that was kind of like a really good time for everybody, like lucratively. When you started, maybe even before Sonic X came around, what were kind of the early days of doing stuff at Four Kids like for you?
It started, let's see, well, there was a Pokemon thing, which was a one-off episode, and that wasn't even recorded at Four Kids because they didn't have the Four Kids studios fully up and running. That was at the now infamous Taj Productions.
Oh, it was still there.
Yeah.
Oh,
And
wow, okay.
I was there for just a day for one thing, and okay, cool. And then when the Four Kids thing started, I got a call from I guess it would have been Eric at the time, and he brought me in actually to audition for Yu-Gi-Oh! One does not often speak of one's failures, but I auditioned for the narrator for Yu-Gi-Oh!
Oh.
Which was nice, but I didn't book that, but that's fine. But
I didn't even know that there was a narrator.
Yeah, the opening sequence was my take on it was Yugi Moto is this guy, and here's his backstory and something about the power.
If it makes you feel any better, I think the reason they didn't go with you is because I think they just made Yugi himself into the narrator because that was Dan doing that. So
that's all right.
Yeah.
Well, bless his heart. So yeah, and then when the next point of contact was a call from the production team for Kirby Right Back At You, who was interested in having me come read for stuff. And I managed to book the mayor in Kirby Right Back At You, which I remember vividly. We were out for dinner at a Chinese restaurant when the call came in. Hey, we'd like to book you. I said, well, that's great. That was the first real recurring role. And then the promo guys contacted me. I think actually it may have been Eric again. They were looking for a promo voice. That was a fun call because we were moving from the city to the suburbs, and I was packing up the house, and I was all grimy and filthy. And this is the fine bit of professionalism at the time. Yeah, we're auditioning for the promo voice, and we're doing it right now. Really? Because I'm kind of moving, and I asked my wife, would you mind if I just hop on the train downtown? And I did, and I hopped down, and they kind of booked me right on the spot, apparently, for the promo stuff, and that was nice. And then they brought me in for the promos, and then they brought me in for fighting Foodons and
yes.
Ultraman Tiga and the other weird little shows. And then larger stuff came along. Ultimate Muscle, which was an Eric Stewart directed piece.
Great show. Love that one.
Great fun. That was my first, I guess, semi-star turn as the supporting role of Meat. And then that led to Sonic X, because the same folks that produced Kirby were producing producing Sonic X, and they remembered me, and they really wanted me to audition for Eggman, so they brought me in for that with a lengthy series of callbacks. And then it was just a lot of word of mouth and sharing within the organization. There were a couple of production teams I never worked with, but most of the ones that liked me would pass me around to their friends.
It seemed like you were in almost, if not every single show that they did. I mean, when 4Kids like ruled Saturday morning between, you know, Pokemon and Yu-Gi-Oh on WB, and then I guess what was the promo stuff dialing back a bit? Was that for the Fox box before it was 4Kids TV?
Yep, I was the original voice of the Fox box. If you look online, I believe the Fox box preview reel, which was never distributed because there was, if I recall correctly, it's probably okay to talk about this now. They objected to Ultimate Muscle because Ultimate Muscle, Kid Muscle, was famous for his flatulence.
Oh.
And I believe they used actual flatulence sounds on the demo reel. And Toys R Us didn't like that idea. So the reels, the videos, they were VHS tapes at the time. They were pulled and never seen, but somebody found them, I think, and put them online. But I narrated that. And then I was narrating the first bunch of promos for the Fox box for the first couple of years, and then briefly the transition to 4Kids TV, and then they decided, well, we don't want him anymore, so I stopped doing promos but did other stuff.
And then they turned to that creepy CGI Jack in the Box thing that I think Sean Schummel was infamously the voice of. Well, regarding all the production teams and stuff as well. So, I mean, we've even, it's funny, back when I did that original interview with you in 2006, you were talking about how Andrew Rannells, now TV's Andrew Rannells, was directing you on Sonic X, and I think he was like, that's right, yeah, when we were interviewing you, I think he had just gotten on Hairspray. So he was already kind of transitioning out of the anime world a little bit, and you know, now obviously he's got Book of Mormon and all this other stuff, which is crazy. But guys like him and Eric and Chris Collet, who I've spoken with, who's very nice. A lot of those guys. Again, all the stories I've heard from the folks that were there. I mean, Erica Schroeder and Jan Green and Veronica Taylor, all these people. They talked about how much of like kind of a family it was. What was kind of your relationship with a lot of the guys around there?
As I like to point out to folks who don't understand how the freelance biz works, there were people who were full-time employees at 4Kids, mostly the directors and the producers, and the ones that doubled up on voices like Eric Stewart, for example.
Yeah.
But the rest of the talent pool were freelancers. We all had either regular jobs or lots of acting gigs to keep us busy, and we would mix and match our schedules with 4Kids whenever they needed us. Hey, we need you for 2 hours this week. When can you come in? Well, let's see, Tuesday at lunch. I can sneak away from work and then come back Wednesday at lunch, and fine. And so whenever I would see anyone, if I would see anyone, it would be passing in the halls. Oh, they're coming in. I'm going, hi, how are you? Good to see you. Or we might, on some shows, be recording together, but that was usually highly unlikely because the dubs were, most of the shows were dubs, and dubs are generally recorded separately in this country. But so there were the occasions of shows that I would be in with people, and I would never have met them until several months into the production when we just happened to be booked adjacently. One would be leaving, one would be coming in. Oh, you're from here, and I know you. I've heard you. You're good. So the times I was there were great, but they were generally few and far between. When I was doing promos, I was there a lot, but I really had to sneak out of work. And my boss at the radio syndication gig at the time was a bit of a jerk. And she at one point said, no 2-hour lunches. If you're going to do that other thing, you can only be there for an hour. Thank you.
It's like, but I like doing this. It's fun. I get to be me.
Yes. You don't use my voice here.
Oh,
so,
God almighty.
Yeah.
I know you've told this story many times as well, but the comments would kill me if I didn't at least go into the brief history of it. The story of Eggman, obviously when you guys started, as it's been stated many times by many different people, they had clips of the Sonic Adventure cast to go off of. So they had the late great Dean Bristow as ref for you on Eggman. And so when that started, I mean, I even actually remember, I think even before the interview I did with you, I think it was Anime Next in Jersey, you were talking about like just how long of a process and like how much they were pushing for you and everything, you know, and then what kind of led into the video games and everything. And that's in those 13 years, things have changed. I mean, the cast has changed 3 times, and you're still like, man. Kind of, I guess, brief history of your time with the Doctor.
Sure. Yeah, the hardest part was getting in. The folks from Kirby Right Back at You started dubbing Sonic X. They knew me, they liked me, and they really wanted me to audition for Dr. Eggman. So they sent me the clips. I went home and spent maybe half an hour trying to sound like Dean Bristol. I'm Dean Bristol. Listen to me. Went in, did that for my audition with more words than that, of course. But that was the first audition. Then there was a callback after that, came back to the exact same thing. Then there was another callback after that, because apparently Sega was still not convinced. And apparently the third time was the charm. And Sega was then convinced that I should be Dr. Eggman, which was fantastic. Very little to do with Sega at the time. They were overseeing the whole production from afar. For the first year or so, we were just dubbing Sonic X. And then they decided to bring the Sonic X cast into the games. And Sega would fly out a production team to direct us on the games, often on the weekends. Fantastically convenient.
Joyous.
But guys that I would just see in passing, barely had time to chat or get to know them, because a very tightly booked weekend, because the entire cast had to shuffle in and out over and over on the weekend. But that happened until 2010, when I got an interesting call from this West Coast-based woman allegedly acting as my agent in the West Coast. And I guess Sega had found her because I was listed on one of the casting sites, and they saw, oh, this must be his agent. Well, not really, but they called her. She called me, and she said, yeah, I have this audition for you. I think it's a role you've done before, a Dr. Eggman. Yeah, Dr. Eggman, I thought I was still doing that, but okay, go on. They were re-auditioning. She sent me the sides, and I re-auditioned doing exactly what I had been doing, which by that time had migrated from not so much Dean Bristow, because it's all right down here, and you need a little more peaks and valleys to make the comedy happen. But I gave them the Dr. Eggman sound that I had designed for myself by then, and miraculously, I guess, they rebooked me, and that was Sonic Colors and Generations and those sort of games with me and the new cast. And at that point, they were recording everything in LA except for me, which makes perfect sense, because if you need me for 4 hours, it's not really productive to just fly me out for 4 hours of work.
Right.
So they booked the studio. Also, I'll speak badly about the agent because I'm not going to name her, but she didn't grasp the concept of time zones. So she called to say, we're booking you. It's for Tuesday at 9 o'clock. Oh, is that 9 Eastern or Pacific? 9 o'clock. All right. She gave me the place in the city to go to. I went to there at 9 a.m. Eastern time, and they said, oh, you're not here till noon. I said, yeah, I figured. I'll be down the street at Starbucks if you need me. Starbucks for a few hours, showed up at the studio, and hi, it's LA on the line, and a whole bunch of new people that I'd never heard. And with the one exception of the lovely voice of Everyone Hates Chris Thorndike, Susie Goldish was engineering at the time,
which I thought was so poetically perfect of all things. I don't even know if that was intentional, but I just met her recently. Yeah, she's lovely, and I didn't bring that up, but I'm just like, isn't that funny? It's like, oh, now Chris lives on as the engineer of the new Sonic games. How about that?
At least for the first one. Yeah. And it was really bizarre because my first question, which had to be put as delicately as possible. So am I the only one from New York?
Yeah.
Recording? Oh, you're the only one as far as we know. Okay, because I may see some of them, and I don't know what to say or do or ask if I should see. So that was fine. And I heard they were doing a playback of a couple of the clips of the new cast, because it wasn't really necessary for me to hear the new cast, but they needed to see how something fit in with the previously recorded tracks. So I just heard the ever so briefest glimpse of what the new actor sounded like. I said, "Oh, that's interesting. Great. Hi, how are you?" And it went on from there. And then uh, a year or so later, I had another weird little session with some other guy in the room that I didn't recognize, but that turned out to be the original test record for the Sonic Boom series. And he was one of the producers, so I'm now fairly good friends with. He happens to live here nearby in town, so he came by. And that was an interesting transition. And then the next call I got was, "We'd like to fly you out for some stuff." I said, "Really? Okay." Flew out to LA, had a lovely dinner for which I was late because the plane was late and there was traffic, and who knew? And I had to stop at the hotel and shave, which I was planning to have more time to do. But that would have been my chance to meet up with the cast beforehand, but I was late. I didn't have the luxury of time. And it wasn't till the next day. It may have been at the dinner, but it would sound more dramatic to say the next day when we met up at the studio to record. My question was, "Why are we here?" "Oh, we have this TV series we're working on." "Oh, isn't that interesting? Go on." And we did some test records live and in person with the first episode of the series, and that was fun. And they've had me out several other times to do some behind-the-scenes B-roll interviews and stuff, and various live appearances, and some Twitter takeover things, which have been very well received.
Ah, yes.
So it's been a very interesting recent amount of time. But still, most of, for example, Sonic Boom still recorded remotely because that's completely more efficient. So I would be in New York essentially talking on the internet just like I'm talking to you, and we'd record in real time, and then they'd piece me all together in the other end.
Right.
But it's been a fantastic relationship.
Sonic has had such a strange and kind of cool journey in that it went for you specifically from dubbing into prelay, which is kind of unheard of. Like, that's such a rare kind of case. But what I'm kind of curious about was, so I mean, obviously with the anime, it was an anime. When you guys started doing the video games at 4Kids, which I guess would have started with Shadow the Hedgehog, I think, up until maybe Unleashed, I think was the last one.
Yeah,
the
whatever
last major
came
one.
before.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
were those all also dubbing, or were they like partially prelay? Like, what was the process with doing those? Because that was mostly Chris Colley who did those, I think, right?
Yeah, Chris Colley was directing-ish. He was the local director, and then whoever happened to be their engineering, and then all the Sega people in either English and or Japanese. It was prelay, but it was matching existing lengths.
Okay.
So we'd record our lines. We wouldn't be able to see anything except the script, but it had to fit into 7 seconds. So a little quicker, a little slower, a little change of adjustment in tone. The only time that there was something to see, which folks will find interesting, I've mentioned this before in places, I believe, was Sonic 06, because there was such a drastic redesign of Dr. Eggman, specifically, that they said, "You should see this first." Oh, isn't that interesting? And obviously the way the dialogue was written, I knew that there was a much darker tone as it was discussing weaponry and death, and oh, this hasn't happened, so I guess we'll have to give it more of a deeper, intense read. Fine. But yeah, there was nothing, just one opening sequence where there was some choreography as he was running in, and I had to match some type of action sequence. And that was a bit of it, of matching just in very early animatic of the animation. But mostly it was prelay to time. And they would compare the lines to the original Japanese to make sure the translation was accurate, and then somehow piece it together so that it matched up flap-wise in the game.
And now, correct me if I'm wrong on this too. What was it starting with the current cast, which would have been Colors onward? Is that stuff? Is it still the same way, or is it now? Do they animate to you guys first, and then they have the Japanese cast dubbed to you guys?
The game started in Japanese during the 4Kids era.
Right.
For Colors and Generations, which was the first new cast games, I believe the U.S. took the lead on those.
Yeah.
I know that that's definitely the case for Boom.
Right, of course.
And I'm guessing that we were first. Yeah, because of the comedic tone and everything was brand new. So that, yeah, it was all new cast, new directors, new production team. The U.S. started to take the lead on those games.
Gotcha. Yeah, because I think even oh, help me, Ken Pontac and the other Happy Tree Friend writer name is Warren Graff. I think the two of them in Lost World before Boot came about. I think that they were even directly involved with coming up with the story from like a ground level on that one. And I could tell with that one in particular, it seemed very like this is fit to you guys first, and it does not feel like it's dubbing. Like it seems very much more night and day compared to the early stuff, which I think is cool because it makes sense since Sonic, as far as I know, is far more successful in English speaking territories in general than it is in Japan, I believe. So having you guys be at the forefront would certainly make sense, and also allow for more freedom with the performances. But yeah, no, it's been great, and I'm very because it's funny. I'll even go on record. I might have said this on one of Some Call Me Johnny streams or something. I remember that like when a lot of people were being a little aggressive about the cast change the first time around, and they're like, oh, except for Mike Pollock. They should change everybody except for Mike Pollock. And I'm like, all right, first of all, guys, they're not going to change it. Second of all, if they do change it, they're not going to keep one guy. It doesn't work that way. And lo and behold, that is exactly what they did. And,
Well, yeah.
But I mean,
Well, here's a perfect opportunity to spike another rumor. There are those who like to think that the first cast change for Sonic X came about because Dean Bristow had died.
right.
If
Yes.
you check the facts,
Yeah.
Sonic X premiered in 2003. Dean didn't pass until 2005, which, yes, happens to be when the game change happened, but chances are that was already in the works by the time that happened.
Yes.
But no.
And also not to be dark, but somebody else in the cast of that previous cast had also passed away. The voice of forgive me, the voice of Gamma. I can't remember the guy's name, unfortunately. Steve Brody. Steve Brody passed away, unfortunately. God rest his soul. And that's not usually a reason to do that. So because it's
Right.
a little more complicated than that, everybody. So yeah, that's, but nonetheless. So anyway, shifting away from Sonic for 5 seconds because we've gone about him for 30 years. But I do want to talk about the Prelay stuff because now, especially, I imagine Turtles was a real, and Viva Pinata was a nice taste of that for all of you guys. But with Boom now, and especially because I know you have gotten to do some stuff with everybody in person, like once in a while.
Oh yeah.
Like that show, I always kind of word it this way, but that's got to be such a gift when you have people like Roger and Cindy and Colleen and Travis who are all really funny and and these, everybody can say what they will about Sonic Boom, whatever, Rise of Lyric, we get it. You got these versions of the 5 main characters are, I think, the best that we've had of them in a very, very long time, maybe even ever. Just because they're a lot more rounded in personality, there's a lot more emotional range to them in general, and I've been really happy with what. And I actually haven't even. I haven't been keeping up with Sonic X as much as I should be. Oh, sorry, Sonic Boom, not Sonic X. Sonic X is over.
Yeah.
But just clips I see, it's just like I can always so clearly hear you guys having a great time on the recording of that.
Yeah, it's a tremendous amount of fun. Even working remotely is almost fun. It's weird being the third wheel, or I guess in this case the 8th wheel. My math is off, but yeah, because I'm on the other end of the line. Between takes, they're all together and they can chat amongst themselves, and I can kind of attempt to chime in remotely. Hey guys, I had something to say. Hi guys. And then even when visiting in person, it's always like, oh, it's the crazy uncle who you only see on Thanksgiving. What's he doing here? So every time I'm there, it's like, oh, Thanksgiving, haven't seen you in a year, kids. How are you? Good to see you. So it's a lot of getting reacquainted and trying to find my in-person rhythm and how I fit in off mic. But yeah, it's fantastic just to be able to essentially do an old school radio play, which is really what they refer to, just the dialogue record, because you're just recording dialogue and you're imagining what's going on in your head and you're having fun and playing stuff out and seeing how it works with almost no rehearsal. We had a table read the first episode, but otherwise, here's the script a day or so in advance. Look it over. Some of them don't, and we will take a first take. And surprisingly, the first take is often the one they choose. And I think to myself, really, you don't want to do that again? Okay,
Yeah,
it's
that
fine.
seems pretty common. I hear that a lot happening with yeah. The live events, the last couple live events you guys have been doing have also been a lot of fun with seeing all the lead folks there and everything. Even with all the technical hiccups of the Sonic 20th anniversary events was still very, very entertaining, and it was great seeing you guys up there.
Sorry, I don't know what that was.
No, even again, like it was actually really, really cool, and it was great to see all that stuff. And I'm sure I don't know if it's even started yet, but I'm looking forward to what you guys will be doing for Project 2017, quote unquote, which will be I think they said late next year. Also, my favorite part of one of those was I loved when Aaron was talking about like, oh, did you guys know that Mike was the voice of Black Doom also? And you're like, Aaron, never mind. Meanwhile,
Yeah,
Schemmel somewhere being like, excuse me, I'm very prideful of that character. Thank you very much.
that was an awkward moment where I decided, well, that came over in the pre-meeting lunch thing, and since a lot of the bit parts, and I don't mean to, there are no small parts, just small actors.
Yeah.
But some of the things that just take 15 minutes of my time, I'll forget once I leave the room.
Mm-hmm.
So, yes, the Black Doom sounded familiar. The name rang a bell, and I'll take Aaron's word over mine. I could have looked it up, but yeah, okay, assuming you've done some Googling, I don't need to do it here at the table. And apparently I should have done some Googling at the table.
Whoopsie. That's okay. I'm sure Sean won't care. Meanwhile, somewhere he's like, Michael! No, love you, Sean. But so with prelay recording too, though, like, so do you feel like after all this time with the character, even with the limitations of having the Japanese first and like with the time restrictions and everything, do you feel like all this time with the character has led itself to now where you have this freedom to go a lot more and especially because like Sonic Boom is a bombastic, over the top kind of show. I think it goes without saying. Do you feel like all of that has because if anything, not even just all of it, but like everything you've gotten to do, where you have like a prelay show that's on Cartoon Network, and as far as I know, is still doing pretty good. Mm-hmm. Do you feel like all of that has prepped you for like, wow, now I'm in this big league thing with all these huge guys that are on all these other Cartoon Network shows? Because like, you look at the rest of them too, like they're all doing these big things, and you're in there and you're on the ball with them the whole time. Like it's really kind of incredible to see like you mixed in there, and it's like you just fit like so well.
Yeah, it's an interesting place to be because I don't really have any Hollywood cred, any LA street cred. And that's mostly because by the time I started doing this and ditching the radio thing, I'd started a family, and they've got school, and my wife has hatred of LA, and so we don't. Did I say that out loud? And so, I'm content with my New York thing. Visiting LA is great. Recording remotely in LA is great. Yes, I'd love to do more stuff, but it wouldn't be practical at this time. Yeah. So yes, I'm grateful for what I have. I'm grateful for what I'm doing here. If LA would like to have me out for any reason, that'd be great too. But yeah, it's a weird admixture. That's probably not quite the word, but it's just a weird situation of it's like I'm overlaid on a piece of transparency film into an existing scene. That shows my age. That's obviously not the technology, but I guess being photoshopped into the scene is not quite the right analogy. But
no, I understand. The artist here is getting your terminology. I get it.
Like a color forms piece. That's an even worse one. But yeah, you get it.
Well, on that note too, I mean, you've done so much stuff like in your time, in New York and outside of it. Are there any other, like kind of specific goals or things that like you want to aspire? I mean, and actually, what I didn't even talk about when the X-Men motion comics were being done for a while at Edge Studio, you got to be the Beast, which was massive.
Mm-hmm.
And you've gotten to do a whole lot of, and you have all these iconic characters and stuff. Not even just Eggman, like with Pokemon and Yu-Gi-Oh and all these characters. Like are there any like other kind of like specific like bucket list things or like specific goals that you want to try to strive for, like things you want to push towards for? Because like with your career as it continues forward.
My bucket list is essentially avoid unemployment. People always ask, "What's your favorite role?" I always say my favorite role. Well, now I say I don't play favorites, but my favorite role is always the next one. I'm constantly auditioning and happy to book any darn thing I can. Yes, I'd like to book something huge and theatrical and prime timey, but the fact that I'm currently voicing stuff for Scott's Lawn Care, Schilling Fertilizer. That's a fantastic thing. I heard myself on the radio the other day. How cool is that?
I heard you in a Hooters commercial, and it was awesome.
Exactly. Thank you very much. And then I went to Hooters, and they didn't care who I was. But that's so yeah. I'd love to work on something huge, but I'd also just love to work on anything.
Yes. Well, wouldn't we all? Yes.
Yes.
I guess to kind of close things out, because this is now the end of Voice October 2016 with you, ending on a high note as far as I'm concerned.
Sure.
I know cliche, probably asked all the time, but feel it is important because I think especially to go out on general kind of advice for because again I think especially now more than ever more and more people are not only like getting interested in VO, but are breaking into VO like a lot more quickly than ever. Any kind of specific things that you would advise to maybe people who are just starting out, maybe getting some of their first auditions or their first jobs, even particularly in anime or in video games, or maybe even prelay if they're so lucky to get that up front? Anything like that you are oft to tell people at cons or otherwise?
Yeah, don't deny the larger world of theater from an experience point of view. To be a voice actor, it's not just somebody who can make funny voices. You've got to put acting behind those voices. So get some theater experience. Community theater is an excellent thing if you have that near you. Acting classes, also an excellent thing, again, if you have that near you. If you want to go to college and major in theater, which I didn't, then by all means do that. Obviously, I didn't need to do. Never mind. But yeah, it's fine. But make sure if you're going to suddenly be alone in a room pretending to talk to people who aren't there, you have had the experience of speaking to other actors on a stage and reacting to them, because the essence of acting is reacting. You've got to know what it's like to be with people that don't really exist in the real time in which you're recording. If you have the luxury of working with other people ensemble style, also you've got to know what it's like to be able to pick up cues and keep the scene flowing. And get familiar with the concept of rejection. My folder on my computer of unbooked auditions overflows constantly because I audition for things constantly and book a small fraction, and that's surprisingly typical. So you don't obsess over the audition you just did. I just banged out 2 auditions tonight. I've forgotten what they are pretty much without thinking, what was that? And then if I should happen to get a call saying, hey, they need you. So, well, that's great. I forgot what it was for. There was some other piece of advice when I stepped off on my tangent.
Come back.
Yes, thank you so much. You gotta be able to support your voice with acting to make it more than something, and also don't try and pigeonhole yourself into just video games or cartoons. Not only is there lots more work available than that, but that work can and is often few and far between, and also not always as lucrative as you might think. Part of the discussions going on with the whole big video game strike that's happening now is actors pointing out, yeah, we get big money for big jobs, but 4 hours once a month. Hey, that's not quite full time. Thank you.
If you're even lucky for once a month, which
exactly
that guy in the LA Times didn't seem to understand, but nonetheless.
Yeah, right. So that's why I'm quite content to be doing a game one day, a commercial the next day, a cartoon the other day, and some boring political spot the fourth day, because I love working. My Google Calendar abhors a vacuum. So
Well, truer words cannot be spoken. I appreciate
thank you.
that. Thank you. First of all, thank you for making the time such last second. Last 24
Huh?
hours you took the
Sure.
call and you're great.
You've done wonderful things for me in the past. It's the
Oh,
least I can do.
stop it. Hope you come back soon. Would love to go to the broken egg again like we did that one time and
Sure.
make more jokes about eggs.
I saved that picture on social media. It's quite amusing.
Yay. Obviously, Sonic Boom Season 2, Sonic 2017. Think it's fair to say Eggman will probably be in it, and that'll be next year sometime. But
There is always unknown to me.
yes. And then any other particular things you want to plug? Anything you got coming down the pipe that you want people to be
Yeah,
aware
it
of?
just got released. I'm in Smite, which is apparently a big online game with
Ooh.
kids. I play a
Well.
vaguely offensive ethnic sounding character. If you go to YouTube, you can check out It's a Mike in my playlist. The Sound of Mike has recent videos. And among them, there are a whole bunch of web videos I did for the Epicurious channel on the secret history of pasta and mac and cheese and other stuff, which eventually turned out to be a series of ads for Buitoni. I am also did a thing, a similar food-based thing on various types of meats, dried cured meats. I don't know if that's been fully animated and produced yet. There's always weird little stuff that people find me in the cutout bin at the supermarket. I found myself there, and they like to try and shame me for them online. And I point out, sometimes plumbers install hot tubs, sometimes they unclog toilets. So you can look for me. Everyone's favorite. Okay, I'll name them. Look for me in the cartoon section in my store. They're in the cereal aisle where the kids will accidentally find them ratatouilleing and What's Up and yeah, all your favorite knockoffs.
Little panda fighter, all that good stuff.
Yes. I couldn't bring myself to buy them, but I did see them there. I did. I have a copy of Ratatouille from when it first came out, but these are now four films on one DVD, and it's like that can just stay right there. It's fine. But
on Mike's YouTube channel, I would personally recommend a little music video, a song of Michael's creation called "Lizzie" that I had the pleasure of doing. I put animation in quotation marks. It was more like motion graphics, but based on Elizabeth Taylor's many love exploits with her seven boyfriend emeralds.
Yes.
And that was like right when I was finishing up college. Can't believe that was like, my God, like 4 or 5 years ago now. Jesus.
It's so dated now. And
yeah, well, it was fun. It was fun though.
No, it was that was a dream come true because that song had to get out of my head. It was a tribute to the great Tom Lehrer, who did a song on the same theme about another woman with many husbands that was lost to history. And I figured, well, someone with a lot of husbands, and then there's that song. I should mash that up and do my own. And then I figured, what would make people want to hear this? Oh, we'll put video to it. Who makes good videos? You do.
Yes. Oh God, why? No, I had a lot of fun with that. Smite, I'm excited about. I am also in that with you. Hooray!
Yes.
And in fact, actually, I don't know when it will be coming out, but there's another project that will be. Actually, we're going to be recording soon that I believe that Michael and I will both be in, mayhaps. I'll say no more than that. Mike might not even know what I'm talking about, actually. But yes.
If I do, I've forgotten already.
Good.
Don't worry. When was that? Earlier? I don't know.
Thank
you.
Well, everybody, that's going to bring Voice October 2017 to an end. So, Mike, thank you again so much for making the time. This was great. So, actually, before I close out, Some Call Me Johnny, who, Mike, you're familiar with on a little charity stream we did earlier this year. My good friend, Some Call Me Johnny, the day that this is going to be coming out on Saturday the 5th, is going to be doing another charity stream. It's the Pokemon Master Race. Yes, it is hilarious as it sounds and offensive as it sounds. Where he and some of his friends are going to be getting together and racing through Pokemon 1, Red and Blue, catching them all, just like the good old days. And I'm going to be joining in for that a little bit. Maybe I'll be doing some commissions or something, not sure. And tomorrow, the day after this comes out, on the 6th, I'll be having some good announcements to give about the Terrain of Magical Expertise 5-year anniversary celebration week. So look forward to that. Lots of cool stuff happening for both of us. But
I
that's
believe
gonna.
in the 5th, they'd be competing with another charity stream that the Sega social media team is doing. So if you'd like to multitask and maybe keep two windows open on your computer and
Oh yes.
master the art of dichotic listening,
My God,
um,
yes, please do that. What's
yeah,
the stream happening with that one?
it's on Twitch. It's Aaron and Sergio from the Sonic social media team. They'll be playing 24 hours of games.
Oh, wow. Oh,
So
Johnny did the same. Perhaps they got that idea from him. Be like, oh, we should do that. we should play Sonic games for 24 hours. Great idea.
they should battle each other remotely
Oh my
somehow.
God. Oh, I love that. Jesus. Cool. All right. Well, I'll have a link to that and all that good stuff and everything. Everybody in the comments below, if you have any memories of your favorite Mike Pollock roles, maybe meeting him at a con or something of some kind you want to share, please do. If you have any accolades to give to the lovely New York talent pool for their work on various anime and games and audiobooks and otherwise, we'd love to hear your thoughts about that. And I hope that you enjoyed Voice October 2016. I'm sure I'll be doing it again with some other lovely guests next year because God knows I know way too many people that love to talk about this shit over and over. But for the time being, that's going to do it. That's it for me. That's it for Michael. And we will catch you all on the flip side. Fare thee well.